Transition partners take mental health very seriously. We are now supporting Claro Mental Health Charity, who are local and based in Harrogate. We are working closely with Richard Kenny, who is the IT director at TechBuyer. Claro operates as a commercial workshop making goods for businesses which enable those with long-term mental health conditions to function in a voluntary real work environment. We would love it if you can join us in supporting this amazing cause and charity and donate what you can. Any amount would be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much, and thanks to all our listeners.
Hi, this is the Let's Talk Leadership podcast. My name's Elly Greening.
And my name's Sandra Stewart.
On this podcast, we will be interviewing some of the UK's greatest tech leaders. We'll be discussing war stories, battle scars, and their learnings from their journeys.
Hopefully, you will pick up some great tips, learn from others' experiences, and have a good laugh along the way.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us on the Let's Talk Leadership podcast. Very happy today to have Joe Lubczynskyj on. So Joe is client principal with Equal Expert, and he's involved in engaging with innovation leaders to accelerate digital ambitions of leading clients across both the public and private sector. Joe has 25 years of IT industry experience across a range of hardware, software, and systems. He started his IT journey with sales of mainframe accounting systems back in 1987, which led to an interesting career including minis, micros, and PCs, off-the-shelf software solutions, and custom software build projects. He's got extensive experience in a range of domains: financial services, telecommunications, retail, transport, travel, utilities, and government. And Joe's led commercial and operation teams, set up sales and operation offices in numerous countries, and has experience of working with clients in all continents. Having worked in some of the biggest brands in retail, financial services, and travel, we are extremely pleased to be able to welcome Joe to our podcast today. Hi, Joe.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Wow, that was an awesome intro. It sort of like makes me realise that if I actually had hair, it would be grey because it's been around forever.
It certainly sounds like you've done a lot, which I can't wait to find out more about today.
Yeah, no, definitely. Sounds like you've got a very interesting background and journey. So it'd be great to start with finding out a little bit more about how it all started for you. Obviously, Elly touched on it a little bit there with back in your mainframe days.
Yeah. I suppose sort of like going back to probably A levels is probably a good place. I mean, the 80s was just an awesome sort of decade, really. There was so much happening, you know, sort of technology was just starting to come in. I think I had my first PC going back to 1981, which was the ZX81. So that was my first intro to tech, really. But during my A-levels, I sort of did the typical stack the shelves at a supermarket gig. To do like whatever it was, you know, in you know, sort of weekends and evenings, and sort of like during that period, it was like, do you know what? I quite like this whole concept of going out, you know, meeting people and actually earning money. So I had a non-traditional route, really, from the outset. So after my A levels, I went straight into manufacturing. And it was a sales training sort of opportunity. So it was a bit like an apprenticeship, to be honest. And that was for a hosiery business. So it was tights and stockings. Yeah, and that goes back all the way back to 1986. I mean, it was the best experience and introduction to life ever, really, because, you know, you can imagine, you know, 18 years old, sort of like not quite sure what you want to do. You're exposed to this huge environment. You know, I think on site there was something like 3,500 people, and It was just in time manufacturing, really. It was literally just in time. So I was very, very, very fortunate to be working literally from the off with like the production director, the sales and marketing director, the managing director on a daily basis. And the office environment in those days was just completely different to today, really. It was, a central office, open plan office, offices around the side where the execs sat. And you would go and share. I mean, this is in the days where people used to smoke. You used to go and share like a cigar with the, with the production director and stuff like that. So it was a completely different environment, and pre PC as well. So everything was done literally sort of from design through to delivery without computers. So all the designs for the tights and stockings were all drawn manually. We had people drawing those. And then sort of like the operation was a 24/7 operation. So, and it was literally manufactured just in time. So I was on this like training program, of sort of like, it was commercial sales orientated. And probably about 6 months into that program, sort of my mentor left the business. But my training was all aligned with one main account, which was Marks and Spencer's in those days, really. I mean, it was the biggest account for the business. And it was like, do you want to sort of like take this over and run with it? Went, yeah, of course I do. Yeah. So here I was, 18 years old, looking after one of the major accounts for, quite a large sort of business unit of the Coates Viola sort of corporation. So
if you're going to sell tights and stockings to one account, M&S is the one, right? That must have been amazing.
Oh, I tell you, it was incredible, really, because I was involved in everything from like sort of like taking the orders, sort of in a part of the actual negotiation process, but then also coming back into the office to make sure we could fulfill those orders. So it was genuinely just in time. We'd get the orders on a Wednesday, and a whole bunch of trucks would arrive on a Thursday to collect these. But often, the client would change their mind, on what color they want, what size they want, the numbers they want. So it was literally, running backwards and forwards to the shop floor, talking to the manufacturing managers, change this, stop this, move this, do this, and whenever sort of any of the stores were light on stock, I'd jump in the company car and drive down and take stock down. So it was brilliant. Such an awesome experience. And interestingly, sort of like, I made some of my strongest and most long-term relationships there as well. Because it was a hard environment. I mean, it was like 6 days a week, at least 12 hours a day. But it was you were literally on adrenaline all the time. You didn't know what was going to happen from the next minute, to the next day, to the next week. It was really, really exciting. And as I say, working with strong leaders at the time in that sort of business as well, I learned so much. So for me, that was an awesome introduction into sales, what it's all about. And then that really gave me the appetite then to sort of move on to the next part. So it's like, okay, I've got the sales bit. This is what I'm really, really passionate about. Really enjoyed it. Got an introduction. But, going back to my early introduction to technology and the ZX81, I thought, okay, so you've got a business here. There's no PC. I'd love to get involved in technology. So then really started my journey into tech, really. So literally moving from hosiery into tech, and I've stayed in tech ever since, to be honest. So with a mix of of hardware, of software, custom software. It's probably the last about 13 years I've been involved in custom software development, and I've been blessed and very, very, very fortunate that my work's taken me all over the world. Met some amazing people, and really from a client perspective as well, some really ambitious leaders that want to change the world and absolutely want to make a difference. So I couldn't think about doing anything else. Tech for me is just where it's at, really. Even if you look at the current climate, it is about technology. Technology is sort of like opening lots of doors for organizations today, really.
Fantastic, interesting. So obviously you've moved, you've had a very strong background at the start in sales. You've continued through, I guess, working within consultancy and sales, although having that tech element as well. What would you say has been your kind of like main challenges throughout that journey, and particularly right now? I know obviously we're all going through a whole host of challenges with the current pandemic at the moment, but what are your kind of like main like problem areas and challenges that you're experiencing now as well as on that journey?
Yeah, I guess the biggest challenge for me, because of I guess my personality, you know, and I guess what I'm about really is being with people and meeting people, actually sort of properly collaborating. So, you know, working from home, whilst it's, you know, it's great sometimes, it is really difficult to do the things where I think I can make a difference, you know, get that enthusiasm going, you know, get people together, you know, walk the floors, talk to people, engage with people. You can't have those, you know, sort of like canteen conversations or coffee room conversations, or, you know, if you got a quick 2 minutes for a catch up. You can't do that when sort of remotely. It's you're having to schedule, so you can't be spontaneous. And if anybody knows me, that's what I'm about. You know, I'm a ball of energy, full of passion, but definitely spontaneous for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're not doing a pretty bad job of it yourself just now, Hansi. Yeah, no, definitely. I agree. I mean, that's the thing for us as a business. We used to do loads of tech events face to face, and you know, we've taken them virtual, and they've been great. But the thing that you lack is having that human like element of, you know, that interaction, and being able to actually really physically like see someone and work the room and network is quite a challenge and difficult.
And I think the other thing as well is, you know, I guess, you know, particularly with clients and with teams, one of the things that I thoroughly enjoy, you know, is the lunches and the dinners. You know, so it's the thank you, it's the way of thanking the team for their hard work and effort, you know, that they put into these sort of initiatives and projects. And that's a small part that I can play, you know, in taking the teams out, you know, for lunches and dinners, and just can't do that. So it's disappointing.
Yeah.
I guess similarly to us as well, it's nice to be able to see the full life cycle of it as well, isn't it? So from sales is such a huge part of tech that actually this is the first time we've really explored someone from a sales background on our podcast, which is, so it's great to hear your story. But I think similarly to like recruitment, not only do we love the tech events and networking in general, which is a huge part of our role, and I'm sure your role, but also like when you're signing up to deliver certain solutions, bespoke software solutions for clients, I'm sure you love going in there and really embedding yourself in the business, as we do. Like when we're recruiting, we've onboarded quite a few new clients actually, touchwood, which has been fantastic for us as a business during lockdown. It's been a tough time in recruitment, but to not be able to go in and experience their office environment and what we're kind of getting candidates into that certainly brings its own challenges, I think. And also for us, we love like when we place people into a business to be able to go and see them on site and see how they're getting on and things like that. So I guess it's parts of that which you really miss with your clients as well, isn't it? Experiencing their environment as well.
Totally. And I think also sort of like, you know, we often get engaged, you know, to transform. So even if you can't spend time on site, it's very difficult to quickly get a feel for the culture, you know, and the gaps. So you know, it takes longer often to understand the landscape before you can then start talking about sort of you know, what a new world could look like for a client.
Yeah, agreed. You've got to identify those areas, haven't you, with it remotely. So so obviously you've led some big teams in your time, and it would be interesting to hear your leadership style and how that's kind of changed throughout your career and adapted, and how your teams would describe you today.
Yeah, so I think I alluded to earlier, obviously I'm a massive energy ball, full of passion. I think what comes with that as well is an element of impatience, you know, I want it now, you know. Yeah. You know, instant. I certainly don't do queuing, for example.
Does that remind you of anyone, Elly?
Certainly relatable to Sandra for sure.
think that's just a common sales trait, though, isn't it? Salesperson trait.
Everything and now.
I'm the type of person that can walk into a supermarket, thinking I'm going to just pop in here, maybe just grab a quick bite to eat, look at the tills. That's my first thing I do. There's too many people. It's like, no, I'm not doing that. I'd rather go without. So and I think as I've matured, to be honest with you, you do appreciate how important time is. So it's about, and it's difficult sometimes, but how do you prioritize your time, and where are you best spending your precious hours? So that's certainly what I've been doing, lately. So going back to the leadership style, really, I suppose that, the picture of, full of energy, I think probably a visionary, really. So I'm really, really good at setting out a vision as to, where we could sort of get to, or where we would like to get to. And very collaborative for sure, so I'm definitely, my style is to work with teams and be the person that unblocks things, so they can focus on doing what they do best, really, whether it's on the ground, remotely, wherever, really. So I'm definitely someone who can roll their sleeves up and get stuck in, really, and do whatever I need to do, contribute wherever I feel I can add the value, really. So that's always been my style, really, to be honest.
Yeah, playing your strengths to support the wider team then, which is great. Obviously we've had a funny couple of months this year, and it's thrown off everyone a little bit off track. So it'd be interesting to find out how you're motivating teams at Equal Experts and uniting your team during this challenging time.
Yes. So, I guess working remotely is definitely a challenge. One of the things that we are doing more and more of is, I try to have more one-to-ones with individuals, just to really understand, how they're feeling, and any sort of challenges that they're facing particularly. And you do get some people that do struggle with the remote aspect of it. But basically, we're looking about, I'm all about openness, transparency, visibility. So trying to as many touch points as possible with individuals as well as teams. So again, the individuals feel like, they are viewed as individuals, not just as team members, really. So, providing regular updates, on sales, on marketing, on to like financial updates, very much an open door policy. So we run quite a number of like online drop-in sessions where folks can basically just at leisure drop in, have a coffee, have a tea, have a beer, in the evenings, whatever, and just chew the cud, really, just have conversations about challenges they're seeing, whether that is sort of work related or private or whatever, really. We've even set up dedicated channels on Slack. So again, there are dedicated ask channels. So it is really about trying to sort of support, I guess, our people as much as we possibly can. We've even got like a mindfulness support, really, for our employees as well. So
that's really good.
Yeah.
It's brilliant to be able to take advantage of something like that. But I think it's tough time for everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone's struggling, but I know particularly within sort of sales, it's particularly challenging, isn't it? So it's really important to be able to support your team during that time. So great.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, I think that sort of thing that we all need now more than ever, don't we? So it's fantastic that you've implemented that within the business as well. So obviously coming from a strong kind of sales and consultancy background comes with lots and lots of challenges, also some great achievements. So it'd be really good for us and the listeners to understand what you feel your greatest achievement has been.
Ooh, okay, that's an interesting one. Well, this probably goes back a few years, to be honest with you. And the reason probably I'm calling this one out is because it probably is end to end. So this is going back to probably 97, 98. So yeah, this was basically around a technology product invention. So I used to work with an absolutely just awesome guy, brain as big as a planet. He'd always come up with these amazing ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And we came up with an idea and a concept about how to revolutionize sort of like home security technology. Yeah.
Mhm.
So this was meant to be an all-encompassing sort of like home alarm system. So this was pitched at the consumer. So it's definitely consumer focused.
Yeah.
So it was literally end to end. So it was like, we've got this idea, got this invention, let's use this technology. And the technology was all around pressure. So we were going to use pressure sensors, to have literally a central system that could sit in your home, and if a door or window was broken or open, this device could actually detect that. But then it was hooked into like sort of like the telephone network, so it could call your mobile or a landline or a relative or all that sort of stuff, and then it would give you the option to listen in or talk back and all that sort of stuff. So literally it was the idea, and then this idea just snowballed really, really quickly to like, okay, then we've got this idea, we've got this concept, right? What should we do with it? So we actually partnered with an electronics manufacturing specialist, and we then went through the task of designing it further, going through various iterations. We then set up manufacturing to manufacture many units on a weekly basis, and then we went into production. But whilst we were doing that, we actually set up a service around that. So we set up a 24-hour service center to actually listen in and feedback and provide support, etc. So literally it was like invention, idea, right? What do we do? What do we do next? Partner with somebody, manufacture. Right then, how do we get this to market? So we did the usual, created nice videos with nice voiceovers, lovely brochureware, and then we had the opportunity to go onto QVC. So
wow.
Remember the shopping channel QVC?
I used to love QVC.
Yeah.
I was meant to go and work on QVC.
Really?
A long time ago. Yeah, I was meant to sell, I used to work in the beauty industry, and they wanted me to go sell a load of nail stuff on QVC a long time ago. Yeah.
We launched this product on QVC.
So much fun.
Oh, I tell you, on today's best value in a studio, which was 2x2. It was absolutely tiny.
Very cool.
And I think the first airing was something like midnight. And basically, it flew off the shelf, basically.
Oh, that must be so exciting, because they tell you the unit's sold, don't they, while you're there? So you're literally like watching it go up and up and up.
Totally. So it was super exciting. So it was literally from idea, to concept to probably sort of like maybe 9 months later, we're in a position to launch this on QVC. And actually ship thousands and thousands of units. So it was the idea, but also I guess the partner that we worked with, it was their faith in the idea to invest in actually manufacturing these devices. It was called the Cyclone. So it was a play upon PSI, pounds per square inch, using a pressure sensor. So it's PSI Cyclone was the name. Yeah, and the technology is actually still used today in some mainstream intrusion detection devices. So, yeah,
wow,
that's my probably, I think, proudest sort of like achievement, really. Really.
Oh, well done. That's a great one. That love a bit of QVC as well. So what? I think it's we've started asking this one quite regularly, actually, because I found over the number of recordings that like people that we've had on our show now with this podcast is that there's some really interesting books and articles that people would recommend that have kind of helped them shape and mold and develop their career over the years, and to kind of, I guess, help you to get to where you are today. What would you recommend to our viewers and readers, listeners even, to read, or any kind of audio books, hard copy books, articles, podcasts, anything that you think would be really useful to recommend?
Okay, I guess probably my first one really that I picked up and was glued to many years ago was probably, it's an early, I guess, sales manual blueprint by the godfather of sort of sales, really, a guy called Richard Denny. Yeah.
I thought you were going to, when you started talking about that, I thought, I wonder, because the first one I read, I can't remember what it was called.
Selling
That's
to win.
it. Yeah. Oh, wow.
In fact, there you go.
That's it. But mine was green and pink.
But is that so sensitive or what?
Yeah, maybe you got a newer version, Sandra.
I think I had a newer version.
So that was a brilliant book. I definitely recommend that to anybody
me
who's starting
too.
the sales path. It just gives you the basics, the absolute basics that you need to be comfortable with, that you need to cover. It's just an introduction. I think sales it's a process, isn't it? So it's understanding sort of like the elements in that process, and then over the years you refine that to your personality, and certainly the clients you're dealing with, and the sector that you're working within, really. So that one definitely it's a great one. Another one I was introduced to probably about maybe 10 years ago was Toyota Kata by Mike Rother. So that's all about sort of continuous improvement. So it's about the Toyota story. And that was sort of really sort of introduced to me by a friend who's North American side. So he's based in Canada, but he literally spends all his time in manufacturing, and he's trying to sort of install this whole continuous improvement mindset. And when we, so interestingly, he was a guy that I met going back to the when I first started in textiles. So he's the guy that worked with me going back to 1986, and we talk on a weekly basis, even though he's based in Canada, and we probably catch up maybe once a year, sort of face to face. But yeah, so he introduced me to the book, and I've read it on numerous occasions, because I think it's powerful, because it talks about it's not just about the continuous improvement bit. It's about actually, if you actually talk to people, and if you give them the power to sort of like think for themselves and make decisions, within an environment, they can make a significant difference to whatever you're doing. It doesn't matter, whatever you're making, whatever that process is, whether that is actually tangibly making products, or whether that is digital products, or whatever that is. So that's a very, very powerful book. Recommend that read for sure. And I suppose another good one is, have you come across Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman?
No.
So it's insight into the human mind, how we see ourselves, and why we make the choices that we do. It's a really, really fascinating read about how your brain works, and lots of things clicked for me. So those three are my, I can definitely read Toyota Kata time and time again. Even though the Richard Denny book is like 40 years old, whatever it is, I can definitely read that time and time again.
I found with the Richard Denny one that it wasn't just like, I started reading that one when I got into my career in recruitment, probably more from like the sales element. But to be fair, it wasn't, I don't think it was just sales, because I found that it just really helped to motivate. It just gave you like a little kind of kick that you needed on a day-to-day basis. I used to just read it on my way into work every day. And you can pick it up and leave it and put it back and pick it back up again, can't you? Which is quite good.
Totally.
So interesting.
I think a really good book like that is when you reread it and every time you learn something new from it, which is great. And that's what you said. Yeah.
Completely. Yeah.
Sorry, Sandra, you were going to say something then. What were you saying?
No.
So, high pressure job, lots of travel. How do you look after yourself and keep yourself sane and healthy?
Oh, right. So, well, I suppose, to be honest with you, I mean, the great outdoors is my relief for sure. You know, I think one of the things that I have done very well and I continue to do well is this sort of like, I guess, work starts, work finishes, and you know, and when the work day finishes, being able to sort of like throw that mental switch and say, no, I'm out of work mode. And I, you know, working at home, I'm doing this now by, you know, I wear a shirt when I'm working, when I'm in work mode.
Mm-hmm.
And when I've stopped for the day, I'll put something comfortable on, you know, a t-shirt, whatever. So, so outdoors for me, you know, is definitely a huge release. You know, a lot of hiking in the peaks, which is just around the corner. Spend a lot of time with friends. Got a great group of friends. We spend a lot of activity time together as well. So that, you know, that's walking, that's cycling, that's just socialize, just hanging out, really. And I suppose the big thing for me that I like to do, I like to have a little project, a personal project on the horizon. So for me, that is, I love my travel. So even though, you know, I've got the commute before and the after, you know, usually, I don't see that as a bind. As I said earlier, you know, I see that as thinking time. So I love trips. So I'm definitely the person that, you know, once everybody's aligned with what weeks we're having off or weekends or all that sort of stuff, I'm out there, right? I'm researching, where can we go? What can we do?
Where have you got on your list at the moment?
So at the moment, you know, we've got sort of like New Zealand.
Wow.
Yeah, looking to do a nice month in New Zealand for sure. Yeah.
Fantastic.
I mean, my daughter sort of like did a bit of a trip around about a year ago, I think it was. So she's been there, done that, you know, and she's sort of like visited all the places that you should go. So that's definitely on the horizon.
There's some great hiking trips out there as well. I went probably about 10 years ago, and yeah, we did some amazing walks out there that were incredible. So
yeah, I mean, the nature for me, sort of like, it's pretty incredible. You know, when you think about, you know, I love going away. You know, I'm half Croatian, half Polish, so I've got a bit of Mediterranean. So even though I was born here, I've got a bit of Mediterranean blood in me, and it's like, you know, don't like the cold weather. I much like it warmer. But as I am maturing, I'm actually getting more used to the British weather, and I do like it. And actually, I don't know about you, but when you're on a plane back into the UK and you fly over and you're coming down, you know, you see the perfectly manicured fields. It's so lovely and green. You realise actually what a beautiful country, you know, sort of we live in. It's like, yeah. So even though, you know, I've got this drive to be somewhere else and have opportunities to be somewhere else, it's like, no, you know, I love it here, you know.
Yeah, I always like coming home. I love going away, but I always like coming home to my home comforts, and it's no place as great as home, is there really?
And I think going away gives you that perspective, doesn't it? Like normally, by the time you're ready for a break, you're so sick of home and you're sick of work, and you need to just get, like, I know what me and Sandra are like. We work ourselves to a bone, and then we get to a point where we're like, we've just got to go. I've got to go somewhere next week, and it's get somewhere booked and have a break. But yeah, like you say, when you come home, you realise how much you love home. You love your job. Having that break, switching off, allows you to give you some time to be creative and think about business, think about opportunities that when you're stuck in the grind of it, you just can't think. You don't have that level of creativity, do you?
No, absolutely not. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. And I think that the other trip as well that is on the horizon that I desperately want to do is Alaska, but in the winter.
Oh, wow.
You know, I really do. And sort of like, I got hooked a few years back on a series, Life Below Zero. It's on National Geographic, and it follows the lives of individuals that live sort of in the Arctic Circle, you know, and how they have to. I mean, it's dramatized to some degree, but basically how they have to survive. Literally, you know, the water, the food, and everything. Really, it's like, wow, isn't this amazing? You've got these people that have chosen a life to be literally back end of nowhere, you know, hundreds of miles away from civilization, really, and they have to fend for themselves. And you realise how beautiful it is up there. It's like, you know what, I quite fancy it, but I fancy it in the winter. So that's another thing definitely on the horizon as well.
That would be an amazing trip.
Yeah, but you know, I think we're always going away at the weekends. To be honest with you, Ellie, you know, it's always a passion to get away and go somewhere different. And you know, the UK is just amazing, really. You know, if you just spent the rest of your years in the UK trying to explore, you know, if you did like the coastline of Scotland or in the north of the UK,
yeah, there's so much to see, isn't there, that we haven't seen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I think it's great. It's great to go away and switch off, and you work really hard, so it's important you do that. Amazing. So it's always fantastic to finish the podcast with a bit of a plan, really. Like, what are you most excited about at the moment? Have you got any big plans on the horizon? Equal Experts, really, what's getting you up in the morning and getting you excited to have a chat with your team about the plans you've got going forward for the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months?
Yeah, I think it's evolving. It really is evolving. I guess if you look at us as a business, as a core, you know, certainly, you know, engineering, you know, practitioner focused for sure. You know, that is the heart of what we're about, really. You know, we build amazing sort of software for our clients. But I think part of the journey now for us is moving further up the value chain. So you know, this is about not just working with senior leaders about how we deliver, you know, the ask, the challenge, and in a timely way. It's also about, you know, how do we help them sort of navigate that journey? What should they build? You know, what should it sort of consist of? How they should prioritize it? All those sorts of things, really. So we have this sort of like, we have these known pockets of, I'm sure you've come across the terms of, you know, discovery and inception. So, you know, discovery is when you've got an invention, you know, and that invention is, you know, I want to build a flying car, but you're not, you know, then the next phase is the inception of, you know, I want a flying car that can take me from London to Manchester in 30 minutes. And I guess teams and organizations are okay when you've got a brief like that. But when you step to the left of, I want to build a flying car, you know, if you come up with a question of, you know, I want to come up with a new mode of travel or transportation, that's a very foggy grey area. So certainly, I guess, you know, what we're looking at is, you know, we've got some capability in that space, but definitely, you know, we're looking to engage with more organizations that are just starting on that journey of, we want to be different, we're not quite sure how, you know, and helping them sort of navigate through that space. So that's exciting times, because
that real innovation piece.
Totally. So yeah, so, you know, but it's challenging, you know, because you need folks with a different mindset. And so, you know, there's challenges throughout of it, and I'm sure you see this in you know, in your game of recruitment as well. Mm-hmm. So you need to change, you know, how you bring people on board and who interviews them and what the processes are, you know, because our processes are, you know, are multiple layers to make sure not only have we got the right practitioners on board, they've got the right experience that can add the value to the clients and hit the ground running, but, you know, are they the right fit mindset wise? You know, do they buy into sort of like, you know, the EE principles, you know, etc. So there's a whole bunch of stuff to work out to address that correctly. You know, don't get me wrong, you know, we're doing some of that today, but we want to do more of it because it's really interesting, really exciting. And these are the engagements that typically sort of help shape some very, very, very large organizations, you know, and affects ultimately their DNA.
It's exciting. There's some really great things to be working on. And EE's known for that. So obviously from our perspective, the market, I think we know that the candidates from Equal Experts, they are the creative, they're the best in class minds that are able to come up with these solutions. To be able to work in that environment must be really exciting and fascinating, and being able to learn off your team as well is great. So it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. So thank you so much for your time today. Joe, if anyone's got any questions, is it best to reach out on LinkedIn, or what's the best form of contact?
I mean, to be honest with you, sort of LinkedIn or my email address, you know, directly, which is jlubczynskyj at equalexperts.com.
Perfect.
We're happy
Amazing.
to answer any questions. It's been really, really great talking to you. I can't believe how the time has flown, to be honest
I
with you.
know it has, hasn't it? It's
Yeah.
really interesting insights there. So thank you very much for coming on board, Joe.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, lovely meeting you. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Have a great day. Stay safe.
You too.